This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. We are here in London and we've got a little bit something different, joined by Adam Smith, but we're on a boat, Adam. Talk about this workout. Look, you excited? You enjoying it?
Is this the first time we've shared a boat? It probably is. It's not the first time I shared a boat with Matthew Macklin and Brian Peters. We went on a boat trip in Ireland, in West Cork, a few years ago. And let me just say that I'm glad Brian's not on this boat today because he doesn't handle the water too well. There was a little bit of seasickness, and poor Brian. He was. I think he wanted to be on terra firma, but we had a great trip out that day with Matt Macklin and some friends and family. So I love being on a boat. Fantastic, different for a promotion for this Saturday night. But it's in London, it's the capital, it's a great way of seeing the city. Everybody should do this. It's a wonderful capital that we live in, and some fantastic sights, and what better place, something different, something innovative. And as for the fight and night on Saturday, that's exactly what it is. It's creative, it's different, the first ever all-female card, and we're very, very proud to be putting it on Sky Sports with maximum exposure so everyone can see the quality and brilliance of our wonderful female fighters. It's taken time, hasn't it, for these great women to come through and take their place rightfully at the top of sport. The likes of Jane Couch, a pioneer, Katie Taylor, iconic, Nicola Adams, Tasha Jonas, Savannah Marshall, Terry Harper, Chantel Cameron, so many. And I'm so proud of them all, even the ones not appearing on Saturday. But to have Clarissa Shields, the GWOAT from America, and Michaela Mayer as well, and Alicia Baumgardner, two of the best fighters in the world at super featherweight in their unification, and the fight we all want to see 10 years on between Shields and Marshall that has everything in the pot. I just think it's fantastic, and to add Shannon Ryan onto it, and Ebony and April, and of course the starlets of the Tokyo Games, and Caroline, Lauren and Karis, the trio of Olympians that we have such high hopes for. I just think it's fantastic. It's great that they're going to get the opportunity to A, showcase their talent, and B, to be rewarded financially and with brand exposure. It's brilliant. It's about time, and I'm so glad it's happening. And thank you not only to Boxer for making this happen, but for Top Rank, for getting Michaela Mayer and Baumgardner over the line, to Matchroom, to Eddie and Frank and everybody there. I just think it's great that everyone's come together to make this a special night for the sport, not just for one side or the other. Getting the agendas out the way and just making it a great night for women's boxing.
Start off with a headline event, obviously a huge fight, huge rivalry, as you touched on earlier on, between Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields. What are you expecting? Is it as simple as Savannah's the one who carries the more power, Clarissa seen as the slicker of the two boxers, if you will? Is it as simple as that, or could we see anything happen on Saturday night?
I've watched that amateur bout time and time again. We've known Savannah for 10 years, Clarissa for so long as well. It's a very different fight 10 years on. Obviously, they've gone through so much. I think Savannah's a completely different person. I mean, her confidence over the last year has been the making of her. And Clarissa was a 17-year-old, and I think she'd had 26 fights by then, and she lost one of 75 as an amateur. It's very different all these years later. I think what Savannah brings is obvious. She brings the height, the reach, the power, the thunderous arsenal that she has. Probably the biggest punching female pound for pound maybe ever. She really can hit. Ask anybody that sparred with her or has fought her. And she's also got a great jab, and she's got pedigree too. Clarissa brings speed and movement and rhythm and footwork, and just a know-how around a boxing ring. So for me, it's all about who gets into range quicker, who gets into a rhythm as the wind starts to pick up here. I've not known, Andy, whether to bring my shades or my brolly, or I don't know, we might have to go underground in a minute, but listen, it's the good old British weather. It's a great fight. You can't pick it. It's a 50-50. I think Clarissa's favourite in the States, Savannah's favourite here. It's for all the treasure. They don't like each other one little bit. They're totally different, aren't they? The braggadocious American and the quiet Northeast woman here from here. I think it's a fantastic fight. I have so much respect for the pair of them, and I cannot wait to see it unfold.
Beneath that, Mayer-Baumgardner, again, another highly and hotly anticipated fight. Great rivalry which has stemmed there over the last year or two.
They don't like each other either. There's another bit of rivalry here. Alicia Baumgardner looks so wound up, doesn't she? And yeah, it's fantastic. We're just trying to keep an eye I think she's in the ring at the moment. I can't wait to see that fight. I think it's a wonderful clash of styles. Michaela's very upright and orthodox, but she might have to get down and get with it for this fight, and we might see a really exciting one. I'd have Michaela a slight favourite for it. She's the darling of Top Rank as well. She's been brilliant as a co-commentator for us too. But Alicia, my word, she brings some heat, some steam. Fantastic performance against Terry Harper. And she's got every chance in this one. Two 50-50 pick-em fights, that's what we want. And that's what these women deserve. They're getting well paid for the best fights, the elite fights. And that's what should be happening. It should have been happening a long time ago. But it's happening now, and we're celebrating it on Saturday night.
Caroline, Carys and Lauren, obviously 3 brilliant amateur careers that they've all shared. What are you hoping for them? Talk about their opponents as well, because it's been something which, you know, this past weekend in Liverpool, and you've been open to the criticism that you've received. So are these all going to deliver much sterner tests as opponents for those 3 girls?
And it's right to have criticism after what happened with Fraser and what happened with the ending to the Liam Smith fight. Adam Azim was electric. You can't really blame the opponent. That body shot, I think, would have stopped most domestic fighters. Adam, we've got to move on quickly. There's no doubt about it. Fraser, we can't have anything like that again. There's been a lot of, obviously, internal upset at Boxer and at Sky, and people don't like that. It's left us feeling very flat and very gutted. We're very passionate about what we do. We're very passionate about the fighters we look after, and unfortunately occasionally these things happen and mistakes are made. We've got to bounce back, and we're bouncing back in style on Saturday night, and that's what we've got to do. Ben and I were, you know, we found it very difficult to take on Saturday and Sunday, I'll be honest with you, and we're 2 guys who are passionate. We work very well together. We want the best for fighters. He wants the best, obviously, for every fan that turns up, and I want the best for every customer that's watching on Sky Sports. And we got some great stuff with Tasha and Patricia and with the British title fight, but we got some unsatisfactory endings, and when we have to come and accept criticism, you know, to you and to others, we'll do it. We've got to be honest with it. These things will be looked at and they won't happen again, or we'll do everything we can to avoid them happening again. We owe that to our fighters. We're all very close with Lauren and Carys and Caroline. Obviously, they're our trio of Olympians. So you know, we're going to build them up as we think is right. But we've got to make these elite fighters move quicker than maybe others would in the past, because you know, they've beaten everybody at amateur level, and they'll be ready for world title opportunities quicker than most. So it's difficult. The matchmaking is hard. There's fighters that don't want to take it. There's money involved. They've obviously got to get ring rounds. They've got to get education. And Adam Azim's had 13 rounds. You know, Shane, I think, believes he can win a world title tomorrow. Do you do that after 13 rounds, when suddenly if something goes amiss in the fight and he's not can't go back to that experience and those gut checks that he would have had. Maybe he doesn't need them, but I tell you what, you've got to fight tougher opponents than maybe they've been fighting. Adam needs now to step up. Fraser needs to step up, and Joe Joyce did that early on in his professional career. You know, because he's older, and Fraser not as old, but he's older too. And I think we've got to be delivering, and we will be delivering better nights ahead, and we will do. Ben and I will do on that. But listen, there were some good things in Liverpool as well. I thought that the Jonas and the Burkholdt fight was fantastic. That's a great hors d'oeuvre for this Saturday. We can't get it right every time, and we're honest when we get it wrong.
Obviously, with that criticism, Adam, looking at this weekend, when you look at the females who are just starting out in their careers, like we mentioned, Caroline, Lauren and Carys, who achieved so much, are you confident that their bouts will be a little bit more sterner in terms of the test that will be provided to them?
I hope so. You never know until you see what unfolds in the ring. It's very different this for Lauren and for Carys, because they were very adamant that they didn't want to appear on the same show, that they want to support each other from ringside. But they knew that this was the right thing to do, to go on this amazing card, to get this exposure. You know, the attention is more on the top 2 big fights. It's a Sky Sports night. I'm hoping they do get rounds, they get education. I think it's slightly easier maybe for the women, because they tend to go more the distance, and they'll learn, they'll get those rounds under the belt. You see with Adam, he doesn't want the rounds, does he? I said, look, this is a chance for you to fight someone who's never been stopped. Maybe you'll get 3 or 4 rounds last Saturday night. He said, you know me, if I see an opening, he's going, and the body shot was the end of it. So, and the guy had never been stopped. So, yeah, a matchmaker's job is the hardest in boxing. It's very difficult. You know, we're going to get criticised if they have easy nights. We're going to get criticised if they get turned over for matching them too hard. So I expect Lauren, Carys and Caroline to come through in style. But we do have to look at but how quickly we move all of our prospects. That's the key. That's why matchmakers are, have the difficult jobs, and why they're the most incredible people in the business, because it's that timing. I always looked at Frank Warren and Ernie and Dean and how they match fighters. I thought they did it brilliantly, and they just got the right fighters at the right time. And it's very difficult. It's a very difficult job. The fighters all want the biggest and best fights for the most money quickly, but they also sometimes need to take their time. So it's difficult. As broadcasters, it's not ultimately our responsibility. That's down to the trainers and the managers and the promoters. But obviously we want our customers to enjoy the best action. And I think over the past year, we've had a fantastic start with boxing. We've had some wonderful nights, some great shows. And I think in Liverpool, we had some fantastic moments as well. It's just there was a couple of things that weren't satisfactory. We've got to repair that and make sure they don't happen again.
Moving away from that, Adam, moving away from his card, get your thoughts on some big topics which have come out, especially over the last few days. Talks of a potential all-British affair between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Now, on the back of AJ's defeat to Usyk, many thought that was kind of dead in the water for the meantime, at least. Surprised, first and foremost, that Tyson's offered him the fight?
Surprised and delighted. Bring it on. I mean, I'm not involved in the making of that fight. It's Eddie and George and Frank and Bob, and I hope they can get themselves into a room first and foremost. Secondly, I hope they get Anthony and Tyson into a room. I really think both of these fighters want this fight, and I've thought that for a long time, and we nearly had it, didn't we, before? And then obviously Tyson fought Deontay, and then we all thought that Tyson would now fight Alexander. Boxing's a strange business, and I look at it, Andy, as there's been too many fights that haven't happened. We all want to see this fight. Does it matter that it didn't happen a couple of years ago? Does it matter if it happens in a year's time? As long as it gets made. But AJ's coming off a really good performance, albeit he didn't win. Tyson's coming off a really good performance against Dillian. He needs a fight. You know, he retired for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then it was 20 minutes, and then he gets up and thinks, what can I do today? And he calls out Derek Chisora, and then he says AJ's a bodybuilder, and then he says this, that, and the other. And finally he's come out and said, you know what, let's make this fight. And I'll give him 60-40. Now listen, Freddie and Benga and KD and all the AJ 258 guys, they know him best, and it's their business. And unfortunately, it's not a Sky decision, or we're not with them anymore. It's DAZN. So they'll work out what's best and what they want to do with Anthony, whether they want him to come back in another way. My first reaction was getting back in the ring quickly, because it was a good performance, and have a good fight maybe against the likes of a sort of second-tier opponent, maybe a Trevor Bryan, a Jermaine Franklin, a Manuel Charr, something like that, and then put him in with a Dillian or an Andy Ruiz and see how we go. And Dillian's a dangerous fight for him, and maybe sort of nurse him back a little bit, but maybe he doesn't need nursing. It was a good performance in Saudi, and look, it's a risky roll of the dice if they do it. Can they get the money? Can it happen in Britain? All of those questions. Can it happen with dual broadcasting or one broadcasting? There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of hurdles. And often these things don't materialise into anything, despite the fighters really wanting it. You know what? I hope this time it does. I would love to see that fight before Christmas, even with my Sky hat on, and we don't get it. I'd love to be a fan going to the fight. I love going to Tyson and Dillian Whyte's fight. You know, we've covered Dillian, most of Dillian's career, pretty much all of it. And Tyson Fury is the #1, and I love being involved in that fight, helping ESPN out and being at Wembley. Dillian didn't do himself justice. Tyson was brilliant. All these heavyweights are great. You know, I've got a big affection, Andy, for all of them. I was at the Merseyside Derby with Dillian the other day. Very fond of AJ and of Tyson. Doesn't matter what I want, it's what the fans want. The fans have been demanding Fury and Joshua for years. Let's give it to them. Let's give it to them as a Christmas present. Okay, why not? Everybody wanted Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall to fight. We found a way of making that happen. Why can't they find a way of making Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua happen before Christmas? Surely there'll be enough money from each side generated. What do they do it? Under the roof in Cardiff? It would be brilliant to do it in Britain. If they have to go abroad, they have to go abroad. I'd love to see it happen this year. I would love to. Do I think it will? Not sure, but I'd love to. So my message to them is, get in a room, make it happen.
Adam, with Anthony, there was a lot of talk after the fight as to whether or not maybe he needed just a little break before stepping back into the ring. He's obviously had 2 grueling fights with Alexander Usyk. He's lost 3 of his last 5. That's been well documented. Do you think it's the right decision for him if he was to accept that offer to step back in with Tyson, who is widely considered the best in the division?
It's a very tough fight for Anthony, let's not get it wrong. But there's a lot of people that still feel Joshua's got the style to either beat Fury or to give him a great deal of problems, because styles make fights, don't they? And Alexander-Usyk was stylistically a real difficult puzzle for AJ. And first time around I thought that he really didn't solve it. Second time around I thought he got a lot closer to it and he did much better, but Alexander still came out with a really good win and cemented his place as a phenomenon, didn't he? And Alexander and Tyson are those natural fighters who are pound for pound the best, and we all want to see that fight happen. But tell me one person on this boat, or one person in Britain, that won't tune in to see Fury and AJ. We all will. Everyone would love to see that fight happen. Doesn't really matter that AJ's come off a loss. Is it the right thing for him? You got to ask Freddie and the training team and the people that know him better. You got to ask Anthony that, because he'll know what's going through his mind. He seemed very obviously hurt, upset, emotional afterwards. How has the defeat affected him? He put everything into that camp. It looked like he was in gladiatorial mode even after the fight. You know, he was just devastated that it didn't work out for him. Maybe this is exactly what he needs to go back into a huge challenge. Maybe. But maybe he needs to rebuild and go a different way. That's one for the training team, the management team, and most importantly, AJ himself. But look, Eddie has promoted him all the way through. He's the one that's got to ultimately talk to AJ and decide what's best for his fighter. You know, he's got a big deal with DAZN now. Is that going to impact this? What do they want to do? Eddie was talking about a sort of worldwide tour, something different. But this is a fantastic idea, and I love the fact that I've heard that Eddie and George are actually going to sit together. I'm not sure Eddie and Frank might, but wouldn't it be brilliant if you got Bob and Frank and Eddie and George into a room? You know what? I might go there and just spy through the window or get a glass to the door. I'd love to see that or hear that. And wouldn't it be great to get Anthony and Tyson in a room and just actually say, you know what? Let's get this made for the British public. I think it would be fantastic. I think their reputation and their legacies would go, just go into overdrive if that happened. I mean, the Battle of Britain, they'd both be respected so hugely for taking it. And I think AJ's almost got nothing to lose, because most people would expect Tyson to win the fight, but Anthony coming off a defeat, he's not got that pressure on his shoulders, and he could go in and become a 3-time heavyweight champion, shock the world again, and become the first man to beat Tyson Fury. It could happen. Tyson would be a big favourite, I think, but I tell you what, Anthony has been around a long time, and there'll be a lot of people that feel that he can pull this off. When's better timing? I don't know. How long's Tyson going to go on for? What does Anthony want to do? There's a chance. There's a window. Don't know. I wish I could help make it.
Adam, one of the talking points, you mentioned kind of red tape around the fight, is where it will land on a broadcaster's point of view. Now, when AJ signed his DAZN deal, everybody kind of assumed that his fight with Alexander-Usyk, his rematch, would land on DAZN. Not the case, you guys picked it up. How would you, with all your years working in the sport, anticipate that deal kind of working? Do you think it would be a joint deal, maybe shown on both BT and DAZN, or if you say with the rights were sold again to Saudi, is that possible where somebody else could come in, maybe Sky could come back in and put in a little bid? Just to kind of get your thoughts and knowledge on that situation. I mean,
I've already thought that back in when we had Usyk-Joshua on the contract, that it would have been a Sky box office fight, definitely. How would it work with BT and all of that? And we never got there. We never got as far as that. Have obviously BT sit on the Sky platform, so it's difficult. Obviously, the broadcast is a difficult situation. If the fight went to the Saudi and the rights were available, would we be interested in Anthony Joshua challenging Tyson Fury? Of course we would. So obviously we would try and enter the party at that point. But I would expect this fight to end up as maybe some sort of joint DAZN and BT deal. If it did, I mean, who would give it up? It's very difficult when you've got different size, different broadcasters, because it's obviously a pay-per-view fight. It's an expensive pay-per-view fight, and how do you do it? Don't know. It's not one for me to worry about at the moment, because it's not Sky business. If those rights do become available, then we'd look at it, obviously, if we went down the road with that. But at the moment, I think the first thing is that the fight's got to be made. what are the chances of it being made? I'm sure there's a great deal of people on this boat that say we want to see it, but would be very sceptical that it would actually be made with all the problems we've talked about, the broadcasters, the money, the splits, the fact that Anthony's at one stage of his career, Tyson's at another. If it's made, the fight, let's talk about what will happen with the rights. But I think whatever happens, I think if this fight is made, it will be fantastic for sport.
Is a 60-40 split fair in your opinion, Adam? I think a lot of people were surprised to see Tyson suggest that he'd be happy to and willing to offer AJ such a high person.
Would it be more a 70-30 or an 80-20 that Tyson?
Well, I think a lot of people felt maybe Tyson would take a bigger share of a purse for himself.
I've heard people saying that it should be 50-50, that AJ should get half of the pie because he's still a global superstar, etc. And I mean, I think Tyson Fury obviously has got the WBC title. He's the Gypsy King. He's the number one. The 60-40 I thought sounded pretty good to me. I think, look, he's been sensible with the way he's gone and offered the fight. AJ's come back and said he wants the fight, talked to 258. It's been a fairly sensible 60-40 next step. Then I'm hearing Eddie and George are either meeting at the moment or going to meet. I mean, are we actually going to have this? Is there actually more chance than we think? I'm loving that. Absolutely loving it. Let's see. It'll be very interesting to see it unfold. Can't wait to chat to Eddie about it. Can't wait to chat to Benga about it. Can't wait to chat to everybody about it off camera and see if I can delve a little bit further. But there was a moment actually. I'll share a little story with you. There's a moment actually where I was talking to Tyson Fury over lockdown. We're having one of our chats, our sort of strange interviews over Zoom. And he told me he really, really badly wants this Joshua fight. And I know, because I've known AJ forever, how much he wants Tyson Fury. So these two want to fight. And all of this bodybuilding stuff, they have a huge respect for each other. They do. And what they've both achieved in boxing. And I think they should share the ring. And if it's a great fight, we do it again. And I mean we, the British public, the British broadcasters, the British boxing world. Not DAZN, not BT, not Eddie, I'm talking about we. This is one of those moments where I want to see this fight. If it's on Sky, brilliant. Of course, we want to give the best to our customers. If it's not Andy, I just want to be there. I want to be up, wherever it is, I want to be there with you. So I might have to sneak in with you. You get me a pass, yeah?
ID Boxing can sort that, Adam. Final one though, you mentioned earlier that there's still uncertainty around it, whether it will happen or not. In your heart of hearts, do you believe we see Fury-Joshua take place before the year is out?
Yes. I hope that this fight can be made. I really, really hope it can be made. I think boxing has developed a great deal in recent months and years. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano fought this year. Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall are fighting on Saturday. Women's boxing doesn't come better. We've just had Alexander Usyk and AJ sharing a ring. And we had 100,000 at Wembley watching Tyson Fury and his homecoming against Dillian White. It's been a quite incredible time for boxing. This might just be, for British fight fans, the icing on the cake for 2022. Let's not hesitate. My hope is that Bob, who I know is over this week, and Eddie, who I know is around, and George, who I have huge respect for, and Frank, who I have huge respect for, can somehow get this fight made. Wouldn't it be brilliant? So yes, I'm a positive glass half or three quarters full kind of guy. Yes, I'm hopeful. Am I sure? No. Is my cynical side and my experience in boxing telling me other things? Of course. But I'm hopeful this fight can be made.
Right, then we'll leave that there now because I know queues form behind me and you've got other people to speak to, more important people than myself, but I appreciate your time as always. I'll catch you tomorrow at press conference. Thank you for speaking to me and ID Boxing.
More important people than yourself, Andy. You do yourself down. It's always a pleasure.